Hello guys, and welcome to our guideline video about the training and nutrition schedule of a first division German volleyball team of the Applied Exercise Physiology course. After giving you some insights into the unique physical demands of volleyball that are required to play at an elite level, we will cover the periodization phases and their different emphasis on training of volleyball within the season. Followed by specific recommendations of a selected strength and conditioning training session from one mesocycle, we will give you a selected pool of exercises. And last but not least, highlighting the importance of proper nutrition and specific guidelines for macronutrient consumption, as well as a tool to calculate individual amounts.
Demands in sports can be divided into physiological and informational demands. There are endurance, strength, speed, agility and quickness, mobility and coordination. They all stand in interaction with each other. When we watch volleyball, then we first watch endurance. In volleyball, endurance is not trained in separated strength and conditioning sessions. That is why the main metabolism in volleyball is the anaerobe lactic metabolism. And that is why the rallies in volleyball are about 7 to 9 seconds. In that time, the ATP and creatine stores in the muscles provided enough energy for all motions in volleyball. After the rallies, there's a break in middle of 21 seconds. In this break, the ATP and creatine stores can be refilled. So endurance is not to be trained in separate sessions. In strength and conditioning sessions, therefore, strength, speed, agility and quickness, mobility and the general part of coordination is trained. The specific part of coordination is trained in technique sessions. The third part is tactic sessions. So we have 3 types of sessions in volleyball that are tactic, technique and strength and conditioning sessions. We know now that strength, speed, agility, quickness, mobility and the general part of coordination is part of the strength and conditioning. In middle, elite teams spend 3 sessions per week into strength and conditioning. They spend about 5 hours per week into it, and that is 27% of the whole training volume. The training volume, which is spent on strength and conditioning, can increase up to 50% into off-season. Because tactic and technique sessions are very specific for every sport, we will now focus only on strength and conditioning sessions. Now we know which demands are trained in strength and conditioning in volleyball, but what is most important. When we watch what elite teams train, then we see that more than half of the time is trained in the strength training, and the second biggest part is used for the speed, agility and quickness training. Mobility and the general part of coordination have a lower part. But why is strength training and also speed, agility and quickness important for volleyball? Therefore, we watch the goals for the strength and conditioning training in volleyball. The first goal is to maintain health. Therefore, trunk stability as well as knee axis stability and shoulder axis stability is very important to maintain health. That is trained in strength training. The second goal is to increase performance. To increase performance, power is very necessary in volleyball. Power is the determining factor to jump high and spike with a high velocity. To increase the power, you can train maximum strength, which is done in the strength training. And you can also train the rate of force development, which is part of the speed, agility, and quickness training. So you can say, to increase power and therefore increasing performance, the horsepower you provided in strength training, you can get onto the road in speed, agility, and quickness training. To sum up, why strength and conditioning in case of performance increase is important for volleyball. We watch now some pictures. At first, power is really necessary to run fast and jump to reach balls and defense. Agility is necessary to do small steps on a small ground, which is neat when balls with more than 100 km per hour is coming onto you and you have to move your body out of the ball to play like this, reception or defense. You need power to spike with a high velocity and jump high. And also you'll need to be quick to close gaps like here in block. In volleyball or other team sports, it's not likely to speak about a classic periodization because the term periodization usually goes back to individual sports where you have only one or a few events in a year where you have to perform. But in volleyball, you have a competition every week in season and sometimes more than one competition in 1 week. So in volleyball or other team sports, it's more about phasing the year to get a optimal structure and training content and focus sometimes on specific things, but it's always on holding an optimal level and not getting one maximal level in one single point. When we watch the preparation phase, which is in off season or at the beginning of the off season, there the strength and conditioning training part is equal to the technique and tactic training, or sometimes more than 50% of the total training volume. In this phase, that's the only phase we have no friendly matches or no competition matches where you can really focus on strength and conditioning things. So, for example, you have really time to work on maximal strength, and then you would start going by hypertrophy and then intramuscular strength training, which here I mentioned as max strength. After that, the preparation phase 2, starting in August mostly. There, the new players come and you really focus on the preparation on the upcoming season, which is really close. And there, the part of strength and conditioning decreases and more group tactic, team tactic things are rising up. And then in the competition phase, it's about 70% technique and tactic training, while strength and conditioning is about 30% of the total training volume, where you have different things you will focus on. Mostly it's strength training to maintain health and performance, and small things are power training or speed, agility, quickness training. When we watch now the competition phase a bit closer, we will look here in week 3, for example. There you see we have 9 training sessions, and some training sessions are also divided into technique and tactic sessions as well as strength and conditioning sessions. So there are more than 9 sessions, but some are connected to each other. So you see the yellow ones are the strength and conditioning sessions, where mostly are 4 in the week, which the session on Friday is power related to get tension and for the match. And the other threes are for maintaining general strength, for example.
Now we will give you a more detailed overview about the training week 3 example strength and conditioning session. The different sessions can be divided into 4 different modes, being first plyometric session, including sprints and change of directions. Secondly, general strength maintenance training sessions, as well as a session for max strength and power training. Our volleyball athlete in this example is performing a general normal maintenance session. We recommend for the exercises between 8 to 12 reps, as well as 70 to 80% intensity and sufficient regeneration. You will start off with the typical back squat, being one of the most important compound exercises in volleyball. The proper technique will be always explained for the athletes and adapted to the individual anthropometrics. As well as secondly, the overhead press with as well the long bar. As well as additional exercises after the 2 sessions to ensure maximal power for the sport.
Volleyball lives on its fast, acyclic movements, jumps, short load peaks, alternating with pauses due to the structure of the game. Therefore, the diet should be rich in minerals and contain the most important trace elements such as magnesium, calcium, and zinc. This strengthens the muscle and the nervous system and promises a good interaction. This should be combined with a diet rich in vitamins, as vitamins provide the necessary protection for the immune system. It is recommended to eat very carbohydrate-heavy foods and a large amount of protein before competitions. This will give the muscle enough strength and give the entire body the stamina it needs to last through the game. Water and fats intake also plays a major role and must not be neglected in any cases. The athlete's nutrition plan depends on the one hand on the requirements of the sport, for example the number of training sessions and games, intensities and durations, and on the other hand on the individual nutrition requirements. Therefore, for example, size, weight, and the personal requirements or goals like muscle gain or weight loss must be considered. A nutrition schedule is therefore highly individual because every athlete has different energy needs. These requirements should take into account the athlete's training and competition conditions and should not conflict with the training plan. These tables show general recommendation of carbohydrate and protein intakes for a whole week with one match. For more details, please have a look at our PDF summary. There are all the recommendations explained in more detail. Now we go more in detail and have a look at one specific training day. We chose the Tuesday with 2 training sessions. The first session is a moderate training session with technique and individual grouped and tactic training, followed by a general strength session. Therefore, the athlete need a good basis with carbohydrates and protein to have enough energy for the training sessions. For lunch, it is important to eat enough carbohydrates, ideally 30 minutes after the training, to have a greater rate of muscle glycogen resynthesis, and for an early recovery phase, a large amount of protein should be ingested as well. After that, a coffee and a banana can be eaten as a snack. The next session is team training with technique and tactic training. So for dinner, it is again important to ingest the same amount of carbohydrates and protein as for lunch. Additionally, a protein shake or 30 grams of casein could be consumed as well for a good recovery and muscle protein synthesis. For a match day, the recommendations differ a little bit from the training days. Because of a light and low intensity training in the morning, a smaller amount of carbohydrates is necessary, but the protein amount stays the same. During the video time, a coffee and an energy bar could be eaten. For lunch, a high glycemic meal with a big amount of carbohydrates and proteins are recommended. 3 hours before the match, the athlete should eat again carbohydrates to ensure enough energy. And before an event, only a low moderate protein content is recommended to less prone to cause gastrointestinal problems. During the match, a carbohydrate electrolytes solution could be ingested to provide sufficient energy for the whole volleyball match. For dinner, the same recommendations as for the training days are advised. On this slide, some protein and carbohydrate sources are presented. Protein sources are, for example, poultry and fish, eggs, kidney beans and chickpeas. Carbohydrate sources are, for example, oatmeal, rice, pasta and potatoes. In addition to a balanced diet and adequate intake, athletes should also take into account the different digestion times of food. Otherwise, in the worst case, some foods can cause, for example, a feeling of fullness in the game or in the training, which can be limiting. The table shows some examples of food and their digestion times. Last but not least, this is again an overview about the match day with some concrete food examples. For breakfast, the athletes could have a boiled egg, a slice of bread with butter, a cup of tea or dilute juice or coffee. Or a bowl of muesli with yogurt or cottage cheese, preferable with fresh fruits to ensure the vitamin intake, a cup of tea, dilute juice or a coffee. During the video, a coffee and an energy bar can serve as a snack. For lunch, pasta or rice with light vegetables or cooked potatoes with cooked fish can be eaten. 3 hours before the match, pasta or rice with light vegetables and a coffee are recommended as they provide sufficient energy and do not have long digestion times. For dinner, rice, vegetables, cooked potatoes, fish or poultry could be ingested, as well as 30 grams of casein or protein shake.